of Mariama so long later by clarifying the the issue of or the statements I made about 32 years and 5 years of married life. It is actually 30 years and 5 years of married life. That statement is actually 30 years and 5 years of married life. And it does not refer to one person. When the context of the novel where the statement is made, the 30 years of married life refers to Ramatullah, while the 5 years of married life refers to Binatu. And it is set in the context of how the in-laws regarded the two women in the marriage, taking them into consideration, or taking into consideration the length of their marriage to the late Modufo. So 30 years and 5 years of married life, 30 years for Ramatullah and 5 years for Binatu. So we'll continue with appreciation of the novel and the issues that it raises. In chapter 6, the narrator, Ramatullah, recalls her time with the husband, how they met, how Modufo asked her for a dance at the teacher's training college, saying, Modufo, the very moment you bowed before me, asking me to dance, I knew you were the one I was waiting for. So it was love at first sight, people. It was love at first sight. Modufo's youth is described as tall and athletically built. He was handsome and pleasing to the eye. Olive color skin due to your distant Moorish blood. So they were both in school and they fell in love. And that was it. She describes Modufo as ambitious. The same ambition that took him to France for studies. So Modufo at a point traveled to France for further studies. In France, they communicated through letters. And this was the time when letter writing was an important medium of communication. Today they will do video call. So they communicated through letters. Modufo's letters showed that he was not attracted to white women, but that he lived the life of a recluse in France. That means he was lonely in France. Of course, the only love of his life is back home in Senegal, and that is Ramatullah. Modufo studied hard in France and had a degree in law before returning home. Studied hard in France and had a degree in law before returning home. But he prefers to work in obscurity rather than cashing on the profession I would have made him fame or famous. It is reported that Ramatullahi's mother had some reservations about Model 4. Please take note of the issue rest here, because when we want to read Dear Ramatullahi by Ndubisi, you also see how he counters her point by point. So when you see the issues that are raised in that novel, they will remind you of how he tries to debunk the ones that Ramatullahi is raising here in So Long a Letter. Because we are talking about discourses and counter discourses here. Probably you can read it as the clash between male and female narrative, right? Male and female narrative. So Ramatullahi's mother had some reservations about Model 4. She found him to be too handsome, too polished, too perfect for a man. Men are not always that perfect. I mean, there's something wrong. Too perfect to be a man. She found him to be too handsome, too polished, too perfect for a man. I'm now at chapter 7. In this chapter, Ramatullahi recalled their school days with Aishatu. Ramatullahi recalls her school days with Aishatu. She described Aishatu as the fun girl from Dahomey. Or they describe themselves as the fun girl from Dahomey and the Malinke one from Guinea. They describe themselves, or she described themselves as the fun girl from Dahomey and Malinka one from Guinea. Fun is spelled capital F-O-N. Dahomey is spelled D-H-O-M-E-Y. Malinke is spelled M-A-L-I-N-K-E. That should remind you of the novel African Child, Come Alive. Okay? Both Ramatullahi and Aishatu received colonial education. Both Ramatullahi and Aishatu received colonial education. And the motto, the theme, the objective, the goal of colonial education was to lift us out of the bog of tradition, superstition, and custom. Bog is spelled B-O-G. To lift us out of the bog of tradition, superstition, and custom. And this motto was, or slogan, or theme, or objective of colonial education was clearly spelled out by the headmistress of that school. To lift us out of the bog of tradition, superstition, and custom. So that shows you how the colonial project was intended to do away with the African culture and tradition which the colonial masters thought to be primitive and barbaric. And the best way for them to do that was to catch the young ones and transform their minds, turn their minds against their people and their culture through colonial education. So Ramatullahi and Aishatu received colonial education, which was meant to transform their minds and change their mindsets and turn them against their cultural values. And Ramatullahi tells us about the man that her mother preferred for her to marry. His name is Dauda Dieng. I suppose I mentioned in the last class. His name is Dauda Dieng. Dauda Dieng is spelled D-A-O-U-D-A. Dauda. Dieng is spelled D-I-E-N-G. Dieng. Dauda Dieng. And when we were looking at our biography, the biography of the author, we said that the name resembles Ubedio. Okay? The husband with whom he had the longest marriage, but still ended in divorce. Right? So Dada Dieng is described to us as the man whom Ramatullah's mother preferred her to marry. Remember, mothers usually try as much as they can to influence their daughters' choice in marriage. I don't know whether it still happens, but there was a time, and that was necessary to get the approval of the mother, or to get the mother to approve the choice of the daughter. It's all been there. Right. Good. So Dada Dieng worked as an African doctor. Dada Dieng worked as an African doctor at the polyclinic. He's described as very rich. Described as very rich. Okay? The polyclinic. He's described as being very rich. He tried to woo Ramatullahi with gifts without success. He tried to woo Ramatullahi with gifts without success. All that Ramatullahi wanted was Mudufo. All that Ramatullahi wanted was Mudufo. She was not impressed by the wealth of Dada Dieng, nor his attention, nor his love. Her love could not be bought with money, wealth, or gifts. She wanted to marry for love, and her love was Mudufo. All right? Do such things still happen in our time? All she wanted was Mudufo, whom she described as the man in the eternal khaki. The man in eternal khaki. Yes. Khaki no be leather. Their marriage to Mudufo was celebrated without a dowry. And this was due to the disapproval of the family. Meaning that Mudufo was not as rich as Dada Dieng. Then her friend, Ramatullah's friend, Aishatu, married Madubar. Aishatu married Madubar. Aishatu married Madubar. Madoba is described as a graduate of African School of Medicine and Pharmacy. Of Medicine and Pharmacy. People disapproved of the union because of Aishatu's lowly background. So you want to look at the issue of class and status in marriage. Aishatu was from a lowly background. Madoba was from a noble family, highly placed family. And so the people did not consider them a match because of the disparity in the background. Aishatu was just a goldsmith's daughter. Aishatu was a goldsmith's daughter. The marriage is especially opposed by Madoba's mother, who is the only living parent because the father had died. The marriage is especially opposed by Madoba's mother, who is the only living parent because the father died. In this novel, I have noticed the trope of literary allusion, seen in the description of Aishatu's father's work and how it intertextualizes with Kamaralai's work in African Child. As well as the circumcision of boys. So Madoba goes ahead to marry Aishatu against the mother's will, but what he does is to help elevate Aishatu to his level. In terms of educational compatibility. In the novel, we also have the description of the married life and relations of Ramatullai's extended family. Ramatullai has two housemates. Ramatullai has two housemates, but she still has to supervise the activities in the house. In this, we are talking about the onerous role of the housewife. One thing you need to note in the relationship between Aishatu and Ramatullai is the issue of sisterhood and bonding. We can describe the relationship using the term sisterhood and bonding. In the description of female relations in gender criticism, we normally use sisterhood and bonding. Because when the relationship to men fail, all the women have are themselves, right? When relationships to men fail, all the women have are themselves. So they must not let themselves down. Okay? They must come together and comfort themselves. When male-female relationship fails, sisterhood and bonding should be a comforting zone for those ladies whose opposite gender relations have hit the rocks. So that is how you need to describe the relationship between Aisha and Ramatullah in this novel. That's the term you need to use. Sisterhood and bonding. And even though they are separated by distance, the latter medium connects them, makes them bond. So Aishatu and Ramatullah were teachers. Both Aishatu and Ramatullah were teachers. And if you have read your English wife comprehension passages, the past questions very well, you would have come across this passage that I want to read now, which you just remember, because it speaks to the virtues of the teaching profession and why lifted that passage for their examination. It's in the novel. Why it requires painful physical efforts or manual dexterity, wide education, wide knowledge, or the patience of an arm. Patient, intellectual or manual, deserves consideration. Whether it requires painful physical effort or manual dexterity, wide knowledge, or the patience of an ant. So if you read wide past questions in English language, you would have come across a passage like that. They were talking about teachers, using the metaphor of soldiers to describe teachers. So Model 4's rise in the trade union organization is described in the novel. Model 4's rise in the trade union organization is described in the novel. In contrast, Maudoba could not join politics or unionism because he is more committed to his work as a doctor. The novel also takes into consideration the historical moments in Africa at the time, particularly the agitation for freedom by the colonized, the attainment of independence, and life in the post-colonies after independence. For instance, we are told about the unrest in North Africa, reported in the newspapers. The unrest is about independence from colonial masters. We are talking about the nationalists' agitation to free African colonies from the colonial masters. And one of the new nations is Senegal, who gains independence from France. And we are told that Aishatu's mother-in-law, who was defeated when the son went ahead to marry Aishatu, keeps plotting her revenge. She keeps plotting her revenge. I'm now in chapter 11. The name of Maduba's mother is Auntie Nabu. The name of Aishatu's mother is Auntie Nabu. Maduba's mother is by name Auntie Nabu. Maduba's mother is by name Auntie Nabu. She is a nobility. She's what? A nobility. She believes in tradition. She represents the African culture in its rigid form, in all its rigidity. And she believes that tradition must not change. Tradition must remain the same. That means she believes in the immutability of tradition. She believes in the immutability, that tradition is immutable. Tradition should not be changed. Culture should remain static. She also believes that blood carries virtues. That blood carries virtues. And that it is the noble who are virtuous. The nobles are virtuous. We are told that our Auntie Nabu was a widow early in life. She has a son by name Maduba and 2 daughters. So psychoanalytically, having lost her husband so early, she sees her son as a husband subconsciously and will not let him leave her so soon. Wants to have him to herself all the time, even through marriage. Will not let another woman have him, except the one she approves. That's why Auntie Nabu swears that Aishatu's existence will never tarnish her noble descent. So she travels home to plot her revenge. She asks her younger brother by name Fabadio to give her a child to assist her in the house. Of course, any assistant will be female. The younger brother is Fabadio. She travels home and asks Fabadio to give her a child to assist her in the house. But she wants to use this assistant, this young girl, to have her revenge against the son and Aishatu. Meaning that she's going to train her as a weapon, who in the end will replace Aishatu in the marriage. So Faba Diop asked Auntie Nabu to take young Nabu, her namesake, with her. Young Nabu. Her namesake. The younger brother asked her to take young Nabu, namesake, with her. In chapter 12, young Nabu is introduced to Ramatullah and is admitted into the French school where Ramatullah is teaching. Because Auntie Nabu wants her to have all the education necessary to make her a perfect wife for the son. Okay? She believes that one cannot be a wife without proper training. One cannot be a good wife without proper training. So you could see that all the education that is given to young Nabu prepares her for a role as a wife to Maduba. As far as Auntie Nabu is concerned, Aishatu does not exist. She is not a wife to her son. The wife is coming, right? The wife is being trained. Okay? So she learns culinary skills. You know what culinary skills are? Very important. She has to know how to cook. This is tradition. The wife has to know how to prepare excellent meals for the husband. Okay? And of course, she has royal blood. Young Nabu has royal blood, which is very important for Auntie Nabu. Okay? Because the son is nobility, the wife also has to be nobility. So young Nabu obtains a secondary school certificate. Then she's advised to sit the entrance examination for State School of Midwifery after some years in secondary school, still preparing her for the role of a wife. Those were the kind of schools women were allowed to attend that time because it suited the purpose of you taking care of your husband, okay? Taking care of the house. The State School of Midwifery after some years in secondary school. Auntie Nabu believes that the woman does not need too much education. That's the ideology. It says to tell the truth, a woman does not need too much education. That's what Auntie Nabu tells the young Nabu. She trains her every single day. She grooms her every single day for the role that she wants her to play. Young Nabu became a midwife. Then Auntie Nabu introduced Nabu to Maduba as his new wife. After all the training, after all the indoctrination, after all the preparation, she now introduces young Nabu to Maduba as his new wife. Of course, remember that polygamy is allowed in traditional culture. Okay? So Aishatu was not worried until it was too late. She was not vigilant until it was too late. And When was it too late? When Maduba eventually announces his wedding to young Nabu. It was too late when Maduba eventually announces his wedding to young Nabu. He claims that his mother wanted my mother to die. Can't you see that she will die? Let's marry this young lady so that my mother will live. Okay? He claims that the mother will die if he refuses to marry young Nabu according to her will. And tells Aishatu, this is the doctor speaking and not the son. Okay? So once Maduba marries young Nabu, Aishatu is forgotten. So what we say is that marriage has a way of derailing the man's attention. Okay? Because when Mudufo married Binatu, his attention changed from Ramatulai to Binatu's family. And there's something is depicted here when Maduba marries, young Aishatu is forgotten. So marriage demands attention, or device demands attention. So we are wondering whether there is a perfect polygamous marriage where the man pays equal and undivided attention to everyone. Okay? But that would be the ideal polygamous family or marriage. Ashatu had 4 sons, but they are not as precious to Maduba as young Nabu's sons. Because after all, they have the noble blood. So in the end, Aishatu chooses the path of divorce. In the end, Aishatu chooses the path of divorce. So what you need to do is to note this motive of separation in the male-female relationship in marriage and link it to the author's philosophy as criticized by Charles Nolan in his essay that we considered in the class. I know that some of the groups here will consider such issues, so you take notes. But if you have need for the key material that I mentioned there and you don't have them, you can always let me know, because you have to start working immediately. So Ramatulai writes, you choose to make a break, a one-way journey with your 4 sons, leaving this letter for Maduba in clear view on the bed that used to be yours. So she just leaves the marriage peacefully, without warning, without notice, except that in her absence she leaves a letter. And the letter is supposed to announce the divorce. When you read the novel, you need to know the content of the letter and her belief, Ashitu's beliefs and philosophies that content that. But I will just read you a sentence or two. Ashitu's letter to Maduba. Princes master their feelings to fulfill their duties. Others bend their heads and in silence accept a destiny that oppresses them. Meaning that she questions Maduba's nobility because he seems to lack agency in choosing what he really wants, bowing to her mother's whims and caprices. Princes master their feelings to fulfill their duties. Others bend their heads and in silence accept a destiny that oppresses them, or a destiny that oppresses them. So Ashitu decides to stay on her own. Decides to stay on her own. She chooses the path of loneliness, single motherhood, and she reads to cope with separation. But something has to fill the void. When the male-female relation fails, a vacuum is created. And subconsciously, psychoanalytically, something has to be done to cope with the void. Right? Some people use work to cope. All right? So they go to work, and it's closing time, they refuse to go, to continue working. And the others will leave and they'll continue working. And they work into the night. All right? And when the security man asks them to leave, finally they go home and continue to work. They carry the work home, continue to work. Because the void has to go. Right? There are other coping mechanisms, like reading. For instance, I should do reads to cope with the separation. So if man and woman were meant to be together, when they are not, there's a void that is created. No matter what anyone wants to tell you. And something has to fill the void in the form of a coping mechanism. I said it could be work, it could be reading, it could be any other thing. Ashitu went to France. After passing many exams, she reads. She decided to cope with more education. Instead of giving her time to self-pity, she fills that gap with more education, acquisition of more degrees. So eventually she went to France after passing many exams. She graduated from the School of Interpreters and got employed in Senegalese embassy in the United States, where she stays now and exchanged letters with Ramatullah in Senegal, in the north. She graduated from the School of Interpreters. Even now, to master French is still a profitable skill. And got employed in Senegalese embassy in the United States, where she stays now and exchange letters with Ramatullah in Senegal. So Ashitu is currently in the United States. And we are told in this novel that Maduba's life is empty without Ashitu. Maduba's life is empty without Ashitu. Maduba gets young Nabu pregnant, claiming it was caused by closeness or proximity, or perhaps helplessness. Says, driven to the limit of my resistance, I satisfy myself with what is within reach. Appealing to biology. It's here appealing to biology, right? Against which the man has no resistance or control, right? So we can call that appeal to biology. Biology takes its course, right? Driven to the limits of my resistance, I satisfy myself with what is within reach. That's what it says.